Hello and welcome to this week's Hang. This week I am so honored and excited to be hanging with Kerry Butler. I can't believe in all the years I've been around in this industry, we've never crossed paths, but I'm so glad we did today. Kerry is a one of a kind. Her energy is infectious. Her passion for the business and life and just being diverse in what she does as a person and an artist is so inspiring. I'm so glad we got to hang today, and fresh from taking her first directing job, you're going to hear all about it here on The Hang with Kerry Butler.
You're listening to the Broadway Podcast Network.
Kerry Butler, welcome to The Hang. It's such an honor, first of all, and it's great to meet you.
So nice to meet you. I can't believe we've never worked together before.
Or even just cross paths.
I know. I was thinking that as I come on, I was kind of nervous because I was like, oh my God, I hope we didn't do a reading together. And then right when you met me, you were like, it's so nice to meet you. I was like, okay, phew, I know we never worked.
Yeah. Are you finding...
Because I'm at that age where I forget things.
I'm at that age where I forget things.
It's horrible.
How do you feel about...
I love people and I feel it, but we do so many little workshops that sometimes, and people will be like, how's your daughter? And know her name. I'm like, oh my God,
yeah.
How do I not remember this?
I know, and it's scary because even now if I'm learning new things, do you find I have to let go of data to bring in new songs?
Yeah, totally.
I did a concert like 2 weeks ago and someone shouted out, sing High Flying Adored. And I was like, what are the words? I've played Che. No, it's gone because now Nikki Arnstein had to go in.
I'm doing this little concert next week, and somebody made a compilation of all the songs I've done from Broadway shows, and I'm listening to it. It was Lauren Molina, actually. I don't know if you're Lauren. But so I'm listening to it, and I'm like, oh, well, she got that wrong. I was never in that show. I don't know what song this is for 5 songs, and they were all songs that I did, and I had no recollection of them.
Well, to be fair, Kerry, you've done a lot of shows.
Yeah, I should remember.
I looked at your career. I was like, my Lord, you've done so much.
So have you.
Come on, it's a fraction.
No.
And you've done some incredible things too. And
I'm
we were
really lucky.
We were talking off camera how you originated Belle and Beauty and Beast in Toronto.
Yes, in Toronto.
So we're talking about Canada and your love for. You were there for what, 2 years?
No, I did it for a little bit less than a year, but it was so exciting. It was my first lead in a Broadway show, and I just love Canada. I love the people. I love how it's not political or, it's just, they're so kind.
Yeah. And it's a great city in Princess of Wales Theatre. You were that?
Yeah, gorgeous.
That's where we did Les Mis. It's beautiful around that area.
Yeah, and just an amazing experience for my first leading role. Can you imagine?
Oh, no doubt, especially in it's a big old house as well.
Yeah.
And who was your beast, Terrence?
No, Chuck.
Chuck Wagner, that's right.
Yes, because I didn't do it on Broadway. I originated the Toronto production. I didn't originate the Broadway production.
So why is Terrence in my head? He did it here?
Terrence originated on Broadway.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, yes, Terrence originated on Broadway. Yes.
And did you
then I came to Broadway.
That's where I saw it.
Yes, and I did it with Jeff McCarthy.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And Chuck Wagner again, yeah.
Amazing. So where do you begin with someone like you? I was thinking about it, what are we going to talk about? We could easily go through your resume, but I'm sure you've done that to death over and over again. So what kept coming up in my mind is someone, you're still reinventing, you're still doing incredible things, you got many talents. You just finished doing Beetlejuice, prior to that Mean Girls. Mm-hmm. And it's very much critically acclaimed. Where do you keep the passion? Where do you keep the inspiration? How do you keep that going? What is it that keeps you going?
Yeah, those are great questions.
Because these are things I kind of
These
want
are
to
things
learn
I'm
from.
feeling right now, especially after COVID. We had that break during COVID, and then I felt so lucky to go back into Beetlejuice because it was you weren't open before COVID, right? You opened during COVID?
Well, that's...
you weren't open and then had to shut down immediately. No,
that's right.
Yeah, so we had to shut down, and it was we thought we were going to close for 2 weeks, and then it was gone. You didn't get to say goodbye to anybody. So coming back was this amazing experience, and also not working for 2 years to know you're going to get a paycheck again. But it was so hard because I'm someone who follows the rules. And so I would hide in my dressing room because I was so scared that I was going to be the one who gives COVID to everybody and then has to shut down the show. Because somebody told me, I don't remember, but somebody told me because we had to switch theaters, it was so expensive. If COVID went through our cast and they had to shut down, we would not open again. So it's I carried this huge pressure to not get sick. I would never did anything. So it wasn't as fun as I wish it was because I was so scared and I like didn't socialize with anybody. And I'm usually like really fun. I usually like organize all things backstage and Easter egg hunt in the theater and all this stuff. And, yeah, I do. And I did a little bit, but I didn't do as much as I normally do. And I hardly knew the new cast members, which I felt really bad about. So anyway, all of that to say that it was great. I was so excited to be back on theater. But now, usually, you know, like I was involved with Beetlejuice for like 7 years from the first reading to it. And that's what we have to do, right? We're always like, oh, well, maybe this one's going to go. Maybe this one's going to go. And I don't have anything now.
7 years, though.
Yeah. But it was easy because it was, you know, like a reading here, you know, a workshop here. I think that's how long. I know I was in the first reading and then we did a few workshops. I think it was that long. And I did Mean Girls in between there.
Right.
But so I don't have anything now. And I'm kind of thinking like, I don't know, I want to connect more with people now that we haven't for 3 years. I wasn't allowed to. And I love teaching. And I just took my first directing job, directing Newsies in Florida.
Really?
Yeah, but it's with kids. And so I'm really excited about that. And I just thought like 2 people offered me directing jobs in like a matter of 2 weeks. And so I thought, okay, universe, I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do next. Maybe I'm meant to do this. So I'll just say yes.
But why would they offer you that? Did you plant seeds that you wanted? You talking?
No. I never thought about directing.
You never even said
Never to anybody. Never. It wasn't even in my head.
Did you do
The
Newsies?
only thing is I directed my daughter over the summer. I direct my daughter and her friends in a show every single summer. And I take her from working, so I directed them in Beetlejuice.
Word got
I directed
around,
them in Mean
Kerry.
Girls.
I even heard about that.
The 7 kids in our show in our backyard. They booked this for me.
Social media is a powerful thing, you know. We all were watching it. It went viral.
I did post about the show. I mean, it literally was 7 kids. And Adam Maitland, we didn't have a boy for him, so we used to blow up doll. And I gave the girl all the roles, all of his lines. So he was just like, yes, and.
Okay, so there's a lot I want to unpack there. I want to talk about, okay, your brain as a director. Because every now and then, like I'm about to go back into the phantom world and I feel like, oh, I want to put my oar in creatively as well. But I'm like, I want to stay in my lane because I don't know if they want to hear from me.
Yeah.
But I'm finding myself wanting to have those conversations too. So I'm like, do I want to direct?
Yeah.
Where do you begin? Where do you get your script, you have ideas. What do you know about staging, sets, lighting?
I'm just hoping
Making
I know.
it up as you go?
I am. I mean, I'm watching Ron Howard's directing masterclass.
Brilliant. Good place to
But
start.
yeah, I mean, I feel like I've worked with so many directors that I feel like I'll know. For sure I'll know the acting part. For sure I'll know the staging because I'm sure you've worked with some directors who don't know how to work with actors and you end up like staging stuff yourself and talking to them about your motivation and stuff like that. So I feel like that will come easy. The technical stuff is what I'm really a little bit worried about. But, you know, it's a little theater in Florida. They're going to help me. So,
Well, I guess you also assemble a team that...
yes, that knows what they're doing.
Yeah,
and I'll trust them.
And you kind of give a vision. This is what I'm looking for. How do you think we can get that?
Right.
Then your lighting designer can say, well, why don't we do this? Or
Yeah.
your choreographer. So when you talk about directors who are, you know, they are a actor's director.
Uh-huh.
As an artist, someone on stage telling the story, how do you want to be directed? Do you want someone talking to you about motivation, backstories? Do you want to build that with said director? Or do you want to just come to the party with, this is what I'm doing, where's my boundaries?
Yeah, I think it depends on the role in the show, right? Like, because some like Hairspray, for instance, I kind of made that part completely my own. Like, so much of it wasn't on the script, and they just gave me freedom. Also, because I'm secondary character, so they really need to focus. They needed to do all that work with Marissa and Harvey.
Right.
And so it's kind of fun when, and then they were like, oh, I like what you're doing there. And then they write it into the script.
I like that too, because
Yeah.
when the attention's not on you, you're like, I can try this.
Yeah.
I'm going to go do this now.
Yeah. So I like that. But then when you have a really hard role and you really need guidance, you really need somebody else to tell you what's working, what's not working. I feel like that is almost even more in like straight plays and things like that.
So in roles like Hairspray or Mean Girls, you did 3.
3 parts, yeah.
You strike me as someone who likes to play.
Yes.
With your energy I'm gathering even in this first 5-10 minutes. How do you self-monitor yourself where it's like, that was too much fun, or I overstepped the boundary here? Like,
Yeah,
do you
for sure. I trust the director for that, and like especially that's a great example because when I was Miss George, I was like, oh my god, like way over the top, and Casey would sometimes be like, I love it, just bring it down a notch, you know.
But that's good. So you
Yes.
are, because sometimes this is probably a validation for myself. I'll keep going until I'm told not to.
Yes.
Because I'm like, well, we'll try.
100%.
And in my head, I'm trying to serve the piece.
Right.
And every
Because
now and
also
then,
you don't want to steal focus from like the main
Correct.
thing that's happening, and you don't know
Correct.
when you are and when it's something the audience is loving.
But when you have a little free for all, I want to keep going just, I like to try things. I don't like to necessarily not follow my instinct and have a cookie cutter performance every night.
100%. That's what I don't want.
Okay. It's
I've
great
had,
to meet you.
yes, I've had those experiences where it's like, this is what you, and also like, even like, this is what you have to do. You have to do this, you know? And so I would rather less direction and when it counts.
Okay.
And especially in the beginning, I would want less, because I would want to find it myself. And so it comes from me, and then kind of be guided after that.
Right. That's what I love about rehearsals too. I
love
tend
rehearsals.
I really want to show up as best I can, almost off book.
Yeah,
So then you can play every day
yeah.
and then make, adjustments and whatnot.
It's tricky though, because sometimes when I'm off book, then I feel like I have my line reading stuck in my head.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit tricky, but you have to just
I
try
get
not to
that.
do that.
But then you seem responsive to what you're going to get as well, right?
For sure.
I love that process.
Me
So-
too. That's what I was thinking. I was like, rehearsal's my favorite part of the process. So maybe I'll love being a director. I don't know. Or maybe I'll hate it.
So did you?
I didn't do it yet.
Oh, when is it?
It's coming up in October. I just said yes to doing it. They just like announced it that I'm doing it.
So what
that's
have
why
you
I don't
done so
know.
far? You've been watching Ron.
Yeah,
Ron Howard.
all I've done so far is watch Ron Howard.
You've listened to the cast album.
I know the show. I know the themes, but I can't even get the script because they don't get the script. They don't until it's like really close to the actual production. So I'm gonna have to try and figure out how to get the script ahead of time so I can like dig in.
Is this one of those 1 week runs or one month?
No. I feel like maybe it's. I actually don't even know.
Where in Florida is it?
I'm Sarasota. It's called Rise Above.
I love Sarasota.
Yeah, me too.
Love the
and
West Coast of
and
Florida.
my family lives right there, so I'm gonna.
Do they?
Yeah, I'm gonna stay in my parents' house, and I'll get to visit with them. So it'll be nice.
I want to live in Longboat Key, Florida.
That's beautiful.
Gorgeous there.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to have to come down and see this. See your director. Well, this is your second director.
Oh, right, the backyard.
Yeah.
The garage, our garage.
You nervous? You seem more excited.
I'm more excited.
Yeah.
I would say. Yeah. It's not like a big pressure thing. I feel like, and most of these are kids, so I'm probably going to know more than that. Anyway.
Yeah, I'm sure. Oh, it's going to be great.
Hopefully.
And you're going to have people around you.
Yes.
So then where else I wanted to dive into, you mentioned about Beetlejuice being 7 years.
Yeah.
So you literally got there from day one. First workshop.
Yeah, the first reading. Yeah.
I bet the ink wasn't dry off the first draft.
No, yeah, we changed it so much since then.
How much input did you have in that?
A lot. I mean, they knew who the character was right away. But I would say I usually like to trust the writers. I think the writers are really smart almost all the time. And I don't give my input until we're kind of farther along. Sometimes I might say, if a scene isn't working or a song isn't working, something like that. But most of the big strokes I leave to them. And then, like, when I'm in front of an audience, then I can really feel what's working and not working. And so I have, in 2 shows, I've given up my solo song because I've said, I have to have my eye on the whole piece. And I don't want to give up my song, but I know it's not working. I know it's not serving the piece.
Yep.
And so that happened in Beetlejuice. And they turned it into a duet, and it worked out much, much, much better.
Oh, that's good.
But what's interesting is they changed it from DC to New York to this other song that was also duet. I loved it. We were doing it in our final workshop. We get to the theater. It's in tech. We're about to be in front of an audience, and they called me into the office or like the lobby actually, and they're like, "We have to show you something." I'm like, "Oh my god, what am I getting fired? What's happening?" And they were like, "We have this idea for this other song, and we want you to listen to it before we even think about it." And I'm like, "But we didn't even do the other one in front of an audience yet. You don't want to just try that one out? So they played it for me and I was like, okay, it's great. So yeah, let's try it. So we blocked it in the lobby of the theater and then put it in tech rehearsals. I mean, in our first preview, because we were already in tech.
So how long did they have to get it ready?
Well, I guess they had been writing it without telling us.
Right.
And they showed me it while we were in tech, while we were about to start previews. And so the first preview, we did it with this new song that we never did in a run through.
Wow. Don't you love tech?
I do love tech. I think it's exciting.
I don't think I've had many curveballs like that. The worst is when you've learned the song and it's set and it's going, but they'll like maybe alter 2 or 3 lyrics.
Ooh, yeah.
I'd rather a bigger change than that.
Yeah, that's really tricky. Alex Brightman's like crazy good with that. I don't know.
I hear he's pretty.
I
pretty
mean,
special
that would drive
guy.
me. That would drive me. I would have to be in my dressing room just going over those few lines because once the song is stuck in your head, it's so hard to rememorize something else.
Right. So looking at your career, you've done a lot of fun stuff, a lot of like high octane energy. Mm-hmm. Have you ever dived into the sort of darker passenger roles? You know.
Yeah. I did a play called The Call at Playwrights Horizon, and it was about adopting from Ethiopia, which I did.
I read that. Yeah.
Yeah, and so
you
that
got
was
2.
really it was really moving to be able to tell that story, even though it wasn't my story. It was similar to my story,
Right.
and something I'm very passionate about.
What came first, the adoption or the play?
My adoption came first.
So
yes.
how'd you find that process? You know, you'll want to conduit to a character, but then there's sometimes you don't want too much of yourself because the story, as you say, is not you.
Right.
How do you find that balance?
It was hard. You know, it's so funny. I ended up throwing out my back because it's so emotional. The play was so emotional, and it just brought back all of that anxiety about, you know, are you getting your child? Are you not? And so, you know, it was very personal. But yeah, she was a different person. But yeah, I definitely drew from my own experience, and they were very receptive to hearing, you know, my own journey. I think it always has to come from yourself, right? And then we
as a starting point, for
we
sure.
always, and then we just layer things. But I would say that was, well, she was a different person than me. But it's so interesting how our characters affect us because she was an artist, and now I'm obsessed with art. And so I feel like I take something from every character I play.
I'm going to come back to the art in a second. Just to tie into what we spoke about before, how were those conversations with the director? Was that different process for you? Or
Yes.
again, because you had so
Yes.
much of it?
Yes. The writer also adopted from Ethiopia. So it wasn't her story either, but she drew from her own personal experience. So it was different. I mean, very different from musicals theater because it was a lot of talking, a lot of conversations. And you know, for me, I'm like, are we going to like do it?
Yeah.
So in that, but yes, exciting and collaborative and hard because our director Lee Silverman, she was like, Kerry, you really are like one of the least I'm gonna not egotistical but vain because I let myself get really ugly because that was an ugly time.
Yeah.
That kind of vulnerability and how that manifests itself, that anxiety can come out as anger because the stakes are so high. This dream of having a child and then maybe it not happening.
So how long was that run?
It was a few months, I think.
Your body must have been wrecked.
It was. I can't believe that just your emotions are so connected to your body.
I'm finding that more and more now too, how my body's reacting to emotion, stress. Obviously, fatigue is self-explanatory, but our bodies are connected to our emotions, right? And I feel like, especially over the last sort of 2 years, 3 years, as we're readjusting ourselves, my body's been pretty beat up.
Same.
And I'm like, but I'm doing less. I'm not aging. It's not about being older.
No,
That's what I keep telling myself.
Yeah. I know, that's the same thing too. I'm like, I'm so tired. Like, I don't know if I could do another Broadway show right now.
How'd you find doing 8 shows a week? Because this is the first time in my life I'm going, by the time I get to the 8th, I'm like, I feel like I've done 12.
Yeah.
Grateful. Don't get me wrong. But I'm
100%
like,
grateful.
I never used to
Me
feel it
too.
so much.
Yeah.
Are we getting older?
Probably. But also it could have been, 2 years of not doing anything.
We're not tour fit. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's run
And
with
there's
that.
still all the testing that we'd have to do. It's so stressful. It's like extra stress in addition to doing the 8 shows a week. I feel like. Are you still testing all the time?
We've just stopped.
So nice.
And it's the first time I'm now seeing people maskless. And I'm like,
Yeah.
so that's what you look like. A
I
year into the
know.
run,
It's so weird.
I'm meeting them for the first time again. So
Yeah.
I'm like, huh, that's what you look
The
like.
crew. You never
Yeah.
know. I know. Same thing.
It just give me a double take every now and then. I'm like, hey, buddy, Neil,
Yeah.
how you doing?
Yeah.
Artists, it's the art side
Yes.
that
oh,
inspired
yes.
you. What kind of art?
I love watercolor, and I'm
Really?
I'm doing acrylics now. I paint all flowers.
Really?
Yeah, I love it. I could it's the only way I feel like I could lose myself and lose sense of time. And I'm not particularly good, but I just love it.
Oh, it's not about that. It's about expressing yourself, right?
Yeah. And I just, you know how addictive your phone is and social media is? I feel like, and it got me through COVID,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it's just so relaxing to me. I love it so much.
So when you got inspired to do that, had you dabbled with art before?
I did when I was little, and I forgot that I used to do. My parents actually, they were on my podcast, and they were like, we were really worried about you when you were little because you would log yourself in your room and just draw pictures all the time and never didn't have any friends. And they were really worried about me.
Well, it all worked out.
It worked out, yeah.
What do you do with the art?
Sometimes I auction it off for charity.
Nice.
But most of it now, or I'll actually give a lot of it away, like cards to friends for birthdays, things like that. But now it's mostly just sitting around my house. I should do something more with it. I sell them at the Broadway Cares flea market.
Do you?
Yeah.
And is this on your Instagram?
It's not really because I haven't. I mean, I post sometimes the pictures I do, but it's really for me. But maybe I should do more with it. We'll see.
Do you try and do this as and when you feel it, or do you set specific times in the week, like this is time for me to?
When I start getting in a bad mood, I'm like, oh, you did not paint at all for the past few days. Yeah.
So that's your equivalent of journaling.
Yeah.
That's lovely. I want to see some of this.
I'll show you. I'll show you after.
So we talk about charities. And we spoke a little bit about this off camera because it's something I want to start looking at more and not arbitrarily
Yes.
just being yes, because you want to be passionate about it too, you know?
Right, right.
Do you have certain ones you're always connected to, or because we talked, I know you want to help with the younger folk.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. Whenever I talk to schools, you know, on acting, I always say try and volunteer if you can because this business is just so hard. You know, your self-worth is about whether you're working or not working. And if you have something else that makes you feel worthy, then it won't beat you up as much. The rejection won't hurt as much.
Right.
So I've been kind of volunteering my whole life. Now that I have kids, it's much harder. I don't do it as much. But when I was younger, before I had kids, my favorite one that I did was there was this program, because I really have a heart for foster kids. And so I like to do stuff that's not connected to theater most of the time, just because that's kind of, you know, my job.
Yeah.
And I want to have other things. But so I had this job where I would, there was this program for keeping families together instead of trying to get kids not to go into foster homes. And I was like sort of a social worker's assistant, and we would go into all these homes and help the families be able to not lose their children. And sometimes, you know, those social workers they're overloaded with cases. And so I would get assigned families, and I would just have to go there and like play with the kids or make sure they had food in the fridge, make sure the parents are doing the things that they had to do. And I had a lot of time back then. So I would go like 3 times a week. And one of the families I'm still friends with, and the girl is like 22 now, and she comes over to my house for the holidays and everything. And
That's amazing. It's like an extended family. For you.
yeah. And I never had a love for something as much as theater as when I was doing social work. And so sometimes I think maybe I should go back to school, be a social worker, but I don't know. It's hard to know. And I was going to tell you.
You're doing that work.
When
serving.
when you look for volunteer work, sometimes it's hard because like you'll call these places and you'll be like, don't you want me to volunteer? They won't call you back.
Well, that happened to me. I signed up
Yeah.
for Thanksgiving here because I don't celebrate that. I was on my own. Mm-hmm. It was so hard to find something, and I
Yes.
found something. Then they canceled it. I was like,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
what do I do now?
Do you know about New York Cares?
That's what it was with.
Oh, that's
it was with them.
okay. Well, still there's still great opportunities there, and
Right.
I feel like you have to kind of experiment to find what your real passion is. Like there's, you can read to kids in a housing, a homeless shelter. You can all kinds of different things. Or if you're care more about the environment, you can go to a beach and clean up at the beach. There's just lots of different opportunities, and I would say try a lot because it's hard to find the right fit sometimes. Don't give up.
Well, that's something I'll dive back into because it's something I spoke with Jared from our show. He was on the podcast a couple of weeks ago. And by the time this goes out, it's probably been out. And he said about finding yourself in the service of others.
I love that.
I think he thought someone said it, but I came up in something I was reading soon after that, and I think Einstein said that, but I could be wrong. But I thought it's so true though, because I feel like at 44, I'm more of a kid in a man's body than ever.
Yeah.
And you're still refining yourself or continuing to find yourself. I don't know which it is.
Yes.
And with our industry, and like, I'm trying to podcast. I find myself, why do I podcast? Why did I decide to do this? You're an artist on stage. You're looking for TV work, but it's very self-serving.
Yes.
But that's our shop front, right? But at some
Yes.
point, I want to close for business. I'm going to go do something else. And I think maybe that is the answer is in service of others.
And it's probably connected to something that you love, something you're passionate about.
Yeah.
And
Because then you can serve it
if
properly.
you meditate on it, I feel like opportunities will suddenly come to you, just like the directing thing, how I didn't even know. And I was just putting it out there. Like I know I want to do something else. And I don't know if I'm going to love doing it, but I just said yes, even though I have no idea what I'm going to do.
Right.
And so I feel like opportunities will come to you. What other stuff do you love to do?
I've been so busy just doing the
Yeah,
do.
see,
It's
that's
true.
the problem. Sometimes we get so busy doing things that we think we
funny.
should be doing.
My therapist asked me the same question. What is it you want?
Oh my
You know?
gosh.
Yeah.
Who knew this was going to turn into a therapy session?
Well, like yourself, I do like, it's all art related. I do like to draw. I
You
like to read.
do.
I like to travel. I like to.
I love traveling.
But then I still feel like, how is that serving others?
Right, right.
But I've learned with what we do, which gave me another bolt of energy for what we do, there's a service in that too.
Sure.
Because for some reason, at times, I don't know if through your career, have you thought, like you just said, what else can I do?
Yeah.
And this director thing came up, or, you serve with your charities. Every time I think about that, like I've had that several times for my career, I'm like, maybe it's time for something else,
Yeah. I think that's
And
good.
then suddenly you're doing another show or something
Right,
comes in.
right.
That's
But it's
such a
good to always
blessing.
have that moment of surrender that you can give it up if you can
surrender.
let it go.
Yeah.
So then you're not that desperate person that I have to get it. If I'm nothing if I don't do it. It's
Correct. And that's what I found, which gave me the energy. I'm like, well, every time I've surrendered, I found something has come up, whether it's Funny Girl or some other things that are on the table now. I'm like, well, maybe that's a way to serve still, because art is important.
yes.
There is
more
an
than
audience, 100%, and there's an audience who want to come to these things.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's expensive, so it's like amazing that we're able to do this, especially like look at Funny Girl. So I'm very grateful that they're full houses, but I think we'll use that as a service as well. I know we're getting paid. I know it's
Yeah.
a career, which I'm so amazed that I still get to do, but maybe treat it like a service too, because art's important. We want people for 2-3 hours to surrender as well.
Yes. I do think, like I said this to you before, I always thought my purpose was backstage and not on stage, because I felt like we get so much. We're so lucky. Like how many people wish they could be doing what we're doing on stage. And so I feel like that's the reward for me. And so like our conversation right now, I felt like that's my purpose, to give to other people backstage, because so many actors are just broken and wrapped up in this business because it's so hard. But now, like doing Beetlejuice this time, I never felt more on purpose doing the show, I have to say, because our country is so divided. And to have an audience of, different people from different religions, different backgrounds, different political beliefs, all come together and laugh at the same time, cry at the same time, that is what we need more than anything right now.
I agree.
So I do feel like you are serving a purpose in that way.
Well, that makes me feel better. Well, I do agree with that too. I think with what we do, our door should be an open door policy, because we got to have less disenfranchisement and more unity. After all, this country of yours is called the United States, and you want more unity, right? And,
Yeah.
And we're still, there's still a lot of healing I'm finding. Well, we find it with ourselves as individuals, so I'm not special. Everyone's going through a lot of similar things too.
Yeah. And your background is so unique. You know that you grew up in Canada and Iran, right?
I was born in Iran, yeah.
And then England. So maybe you're meant to be a peacemaker. Maybe you're meant to use your social media as a peacemaker.
I think I've caused less peace at
Really?
times, but yeah, well, maybe.
Well, sometimes you need to not cause peace to make peace.
Okay, I'll remember that. That's true, and I'm trying to have a different relationship with social media too, because
I know,
and
it's hard.
Again, you talk about, okay, well, how can we be of service? And I think, all right, well, we sing, we perform. I'll use that as an extension, as a smaller stage.
Yeah.
If people want to.
I think the troubling part is that what do we do when we're not doing that? Because so much of our time is not doing that. And then does our identity collapse? Because I don't have I'm not singing for anybody now.
No,
I'm
but
not performing.
Is there a difference between your public identity to your personal identity, to who you are as
Right.
in your family?
Yeah.
Because there's things that
my family.
I wouldn't
Yes,
show
sure,
that
sure.
online.
No,
It's not
yeah.
for
I'm not
that.
talking about online. I'm just talking about our purpose, whether it's just wrapped up in performing and singing.
No, it can't be just that.
Right, it can't.
No. I don't
No.
identify, I'd like to think who I am as a person, what defines me, acting is not that.
Right.
That's just
But
what I
don't you
get to
feel like
do.
a lot of people do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's also what I show them online. So
Yes.
it doesn't bother me, because I'm like, well, that's what I've offered.
Right.
But with social media, I kind of want to use YouTube for a certain thing, Instagram for a certain thing, and then the other one's just more for me, it's a business tool.
Totally.
A promotion thing.
Same.
But I've taken comments off where I can, because I'm like, I don't do it for comments. I don't do what we do all night to get feedback. I do it because I love it.
Yeah.
So we'll just keep offering it, and I don't need the comments, because one, also it stops me scrolling, and
Yes,
now I can
that's
just post and
smart.
walk away, and it
That's
is what it
smart.
is.
Yeah.
And then I found now I'm having more fun doing that,
Good.
and gives me more energy, gives me less wasting time.
Yeah.
Because a lot of it can be entertaining too. And I'm like, an hour later, I'm like, I've been on this thing for an hour.
I know.
But, it's finding that balance. But we're still finding our feet. Mm-hmm. So you podcast.
I do. Yes.
Breaking Broadway.
Yes. Because I don't know if you get this, but my biggest question that I get asked on Instagram or all the time at the stage door or whatever was, how can I make it to Broadway? And so I made a whole podcast filled with tips for people on how to make it Broadway. So I have casting directors.
Amazing.
Yeah, I have a new season coming out, and that's kind of,
That's third season, right?
yeah, and it's how do we do 8 shows a week? So I have, and I don't get my famous friends. I kind of get people with interesting stories that
Yeah.
I think, I have my the person who teaches me Pilates. She's from France, and she wants to be a dancer on Broadway, and it's just interesting to me. And she helped me, and she's getting over an injury, so I think she can help people. But I have Angie Shore on,
Yeah.
dancer extraordinaire who's been in a million shows too. So I kind of balance it out that way.
So that was a great reason to start. And are you enjoying it?
Yeah, I do really like it, actually.
When you podcast and set up a season, do you have a certain amount, I'm doing 6, I'm doing 12?
No, I kind of let it take me where it takes me.
Until you're busy to do
Yes,
it?
exactly. I mean,
nice.
I feel like I have maybe 8 episodes this time for the season, and that's good.
How long does each podcast last?
Half hour to an hour, I wowould say.
How long
Usually.
have we been going? Oh, we're doing okay. And you're on the same network, Broadway Podcast Network, which I like because they can help edit it all up.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. I used to do that my first few seasons, but boy, that takes a lot of work.
Yeah, no, I would not do that.
No. But it was during the pandemic, so I had time. It's like, I'll sit here for a while.
Sure.
But then after a while, I was so tired of hearing my own voice and look at myself. I'm like, nope.
Yeah, they're very, very nice to me. They take good care of me.
That's great. Let me ask a couple, see if we got some fan questions, or supporters, I should say. Xanadu. I just said, you got any questions? And someone
Just
goes,
Xanadu.
definitely something about XANADU for sure.
Okay, Xanadu was the hardest show I ever did because I'm very uncoordinated. I'm like one of the most uncoordinated people that you will ever see, and I can't really dance. And I was on roller skates. I thought I was gonna die every night, and I took tons of lessons before we started, and but I really thought they were gonna fire me because I told Chris Ashley once we started, I was like, just so you know, I can't act because I'm still in my head, like push off on this foot, stop on this foot, and I really couldn't. And that I was also playing 3 characters, and after it ended up, he stuck with me. It ended up going great, and I joked with him after. I was like, I thought you were gonna fire me the whole time, and he's like, like deadpan. So he actually was thinking about it. And I would even get skating lessons on my lunch break because I was so obsessed. Like I couldn't do it. It was really hard.
I'm glad I asked that. That's funny. And one more. Again, it's just a general ask of Catch Me If You Can. I bet that was a lot of fun to work on.
Oh my God, yes. Norbert, Aaron, so great. Love them. We got to go out of town together in Seattle. And also working with the same team from Hairspray, Jack O'Brien. And
Jack, of course. I
Mark
did Love
and
Never Dies.
Scott. I think that, you did Love Never Dies with him. He's the best.
I could listen to talk for hours.
Me too. I used to want to record his
Yeah.
I mean, talk about working with great directors.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
There was one where I'm like, we're just going to sit and talk for half hour.
Yeah.
No problem.
Yeah, he would give these motivational speeches that and that's it. That's all the direction you needed.
And it was about his experience, like life.
Yeah.
Did he talk about how you live life in decades?
Our show, Hairspray, he would talk about how the protests affected him because he was, lived through that and how he was protesting and kind of the things he thought. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember him sitting down talking like your 20s, you think you're something. And it's like where you make all your mistakes. In 30s, you really start figuring out those mistakes and whatnot. 40s, you start driving your life.
Really?
50s, you really start living your life. 60s, now the fun begins. I was like,
Ooh.
wow, all right.
All right. We have something to look forward to.
And I was in my 20s when you told me that story. And now in my 40s, I'm like, he's right. Because my decades have been so different.
Yes, same. I feel like I have so much less pressure on myself now, too. Yeah. It's like, if I don't get on Broadway, who cares?
Yeah.
And before I'd be like, I have to be in a show,
So then to finish off, like you said, I love this phrase recently because I've been listening to a lot of Jay Shetty's podcast, On Purpose. And you said On Purpose.
Yeah.
And I think just to wrap it up with how you do 8 shows a week at this point, with all you've done, and I feel like you're still done your first Broadway job with your energy and your passion. But again, I guess it's what you just said. It's that surrender, that release, that less pressure on yourself. Maybe that's the sort of amalgamation of living your life in decades where, oh man, if I could tell my 20-year-old self certain things.
I do love it so much still. Every day I go in the stage door, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going in a Broadway stage door. And I do feel like I could be happy doing it anywhere in the country. Broadway is just a name. Like if I grow out of Broadway doesn't want me anymore, once my kids are grown, I'll be like doing community theater someplace,
See, I love that. I have that same mentality because I've been very blessed to like work Japan, Korea, Australia, England here. And Broadway's not a goal. It's like, what's the show we're doing?
Yeah.
That's exciting. And if it happens to be somewhere great like Japan, sign me up.
Yeah.
Someone tweeted me today about the fandom, like, why Trieste? And I just wanted to write back, why not?
Why not? Yeah.
Why not?
That looks super exciting.
Yeah. Why not? And it's never been there. Anyhow, Kerry, you're amazing.
Oh, thanks.
And I feel like I don't even know if we scratched the surface. I'm not sure I'm good at doing this, but I love doing it because I get to meet people like you, and I've been a student for you in the last 40 minutes. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
So Breaking Broadway, season 3.
Yes.
I don't know when this will come out, but
Podcast Network.
.com. No. Is it .com? What's that? BroadwayPodcastNetwork.com? Yes. There you go. Just rolls off the tongue. All the best.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for the hang.
That was so fun.